Hello everybody, this is Angel Ribo with the Xpnsion Network, accelerating consciousness for humanity. We are here at the Conscious Life Expo celebration, let's say, 2020, February, in Los Angeles, California. And we are here today, so blessed and lucky to have Kaliyani with us. Hi Kaliyani, how are you?
Hi Angel, I'm good. How are you?
Awesome, very well, thank you.
Wonderful time.
Thank you. So she's a spiritual, inspired visionary. So she's a very special being, and I would like actually to ask her a very difficult question to start with, because I'm sure that she'll take it, which is, could you explain to us, please, one of the most life-changing experiences that you've ever had?
Okay, well I like that. I like that question. I feel the most life-changing experience I had was when I was very young. I was about between 8 and 9 years old. And I had an out-of-body experience that, I was a very active kid. In the middle of the afternoon, I was taken, I just went up into my bunk bed, looked into the ceiling, lay down, which is unusual, and I just was taken out of my body and shown, the earth from above and going back. And as I went back, I was going back in time. It was very interesting because I would see the world and the earth changing, and then there were no people in it. It was very lush and beautiful, and going farther and farther out into the cosmos. I could see more planets, and there was a revolving question that I don't know where it came from, but I could just hear myself saying, what else was there? What was before? What was before that? What was before that? I was going into the past, but I was going into the past from outside of my body. So I saw the planets start to disappear as this revolving question started continue to go, and then I was seeing the galaxies. I was like I was in the middle of the universe, and I saw all of it pop one by one, slowly, and I saw myself complete darkness. I was just in very alone, in that space, but it was very peaceful. I didn't feel any fear, and the revolving question. Well, in that moment I thought, this must be where God is. Because I was a child who prayed. I prayed a lot. I was taught to pray. And I had awareness of soul and God and already in that time in my life. So I asked, what was there before God? I didn't have any fear. This revolving question was just there, and I can't explain why. So the same question went, and what was there before God? If God is here, what is before that? So in that moment, I was brought back down very fast, violently, like, and then when I landed in my body just, I came up, I sat up straight, and my heart was pounding, and I opened my eyes, and I couldn't remember my name, I couldn't remember anything, I didn't know what anything was. I was in my bunk bed. I didn't know that had a name or a wall. I didn't remember my mother, my grandma, my mother, and my sister. We all lived together. I didn't remember anyone. I didn't remember who I was or what that was. It was shocking to my system. I was terrified, So it was many years later that I came to understand that was I lost identity. I had a complete loss of identity then. And I became I was spiritually curious all my life, and but I couldn't talk about that. It was so terrifying that I didn't talk about that to my parents or my grandma, nobody, for years and years and years. I started talking about it in my 30s and 40s, it was just not something I could, I hadn't digested. I wanted to forget. It's almost a trauma, Mm-hmm. But I came out of the bed and I started running out of the house into the street. I took a flight of steps and I started to run. I just didn't know what to do. I just ran. And in that process of running, I started skipping and jumping. And I started to come back my memory started to come back. And it was a relief. I felt so much love, to a feeling of belonging, a feeling of connectedness. And for many, many decades, I didn't know what was that, you know? And now I'm getting there in a sense that was the answer for what was there before God. There is no love, no sense of connection. There is a complete forgetting. You know, it is the glue, you know, consciousness, spirit, source that keeps it all together. And so in losing all of it, you know, some sages have had that experience of losing, like Papaji, he lost consciousness too, or identity, when he was 8. I don't know the details of it, but everybody seems to describe it as a wonderful thing, you know. But either because I was a child, my experience was traumatizing, and remembering felt beautiful, felt like love, because I remembered my mom, and I remembered my sister and my grandmother, and I felt love. And so without consciousness, without spirit, there's no love. What is there before spirit? Nothing. There's no love, there's nothing when there's no love.
So what do you think that was before God? After that experience and after obviously everything that you've lived after, up until today, what would you say was before love?
If that is the answer, I would say there's no love. There's the absence of, there's nothing. There is nothing. Because existence itself, you know, I thought you know, if that's the answer, there's nothing that has any significance. There is no meaning. There is no love. There is no connecting. Everything that makes us who we are, everything that makes nature what it is, the trees communicate with each other. You know, mycelium underground, traveling miles and miles. You know, all of us are connected, and if the answer to that connection, that communication, that sense of belonging, that love, you know, is consciousness, is source energy, is God, whatever we want to call it, is that, you know, so I don't think there is life, there's nothing.
Between your 8 years old and your 30s, did you keep on praying? Did you try to relive that moment? Obviously you said I didn't want to talk about it until the 30s, but how did you live that experience yourself internally between the 8 years old and the 30 years old?
That experience particularly, I wanted to forget, and that's pretty much what I put it aside like a trauma. I didn't want to remember, but I continued even more intensely curious about the true nature of reality, of consciousness, of spirituality. And I was growing up in Brazil, and Brazil is a country filled with spirituality and many different types of spirituality. And I read many, many books. I was a child who loved to read. I began reading very early. I just, I was just always seeking, and when I got to my teens, I started actually visiting places, studying. I studied everything that was mystic and occult called me. Spirituality in terms of Kabbalah, numerology, tarot, stuff that, you know, and then Kardasism, which is Allan Kardec's. I don't know if you're familiar with that. No. It's huge in Brazil, and they're here in the United States as well. Then the Yoruba tradition from Africa. Brazil has a lot of that. It's trans-channeling through dance and drumming, and I learned a lot about that. I spoke to a lot of entities, spiritual beings who guide us, you know, through that process. I had a member of the family who was a medium since She was 15 years old. And she didn't do it publicly, but she did it for us and more privately. And it went on and on and on and on. And I was curious about all forms, and I believed in the back of my head and my heart that all of it was one thing. That all these diversity, I didn't understand why all the diversity existed, because a voice in me said, there's only one point, one truth, you know, but it's almost like there's only one humanity, but we have many faces, right? Many beings. So I guess it was a process of understanding, you know, all of it. And I prayed, always prayed. And then I got married. When I got married,
At what age?
I was 24, 23.
In Brazil?
23. Yeah, I met him here, and then we got married in Brazil and here as well. But my wedding ceremony was beautiful, was there. It was very interesting because as a child I did not want to get married, and I didn't want anybody to know that. My girlfriends would not understand that. And I remember we would fill these spiral books, you know, they would pass it around. What's your name, age, what's your favorite color, you know, all these things about you, each page, you know. And there was always the question, when do you want to get married? How old do you want to be? And I would just become very nervous about that because I didn't want to get married, but everybody was so excited about getting married as a girl, and I didn't. But, you know, I felt like I came here to do something else, not to have a family, but the universe wanted that. And I had a spiritual contract, and I'm glad I did, because there's nothing more beautiful and more heart-opening and more cultivating. The biggest school of compassion is family. You know, it's what teaches your heart to expand. It's what teaches you love. So in that process, I got really busy. I had 4 children, and my husband didn't like religion. He didn't understand the difference between religion and spirituality. And his family had been killed, all of his family, his father's family, killed in concentration camps in Auschwitz and other places as well. They were German Jews. And his father ran from Germany just after Kristallnacht, and then he ended up in Brazil. And so my ex-husband's father, and he already passed away. My ex-husband passed away in 2015, unfortunately.
Sorry.
Yeah, but he's in a good place. I already spoke to him. So I'm happy. Yeah, his father went to Brazil, got married to a Catholic woman. He didn't really, you know, care, you know, wasn't very attached to that. And then he was brought up with those two, you know, and he decided that he didn't want to be either, because he felt religion killed more people than everywhere in the world. And so, to make a long story short, I kind of slowly, I prayed, but I left my books aside, because I was afraid it would spook him out, because I read a lot, and I did a lot of esoteric things, studies. But in my teens, I was also doing hands-on healing. I read a book by Barbara Ann Brennan, you know, called Hands of Light, and I had an innate understanding of that I could heal with my hands. So people who came over, you know, and or if people who were feeling pain, headaches, mostly, you know, I did mesmeric passes, and I would, like, within 5 minutes, take the pain away. One day my mother takes me for a haircut to a friend of hers who has a hair salon, you know, and I'm waiting there in the chair, and she doesn't come. She takes a long time, and we're like waiting, and when she finally shows up, she says, "I'm so sorry, I'm having the worst migraine." And my mother said, "Well, you know, she can take it away, you know, Kaliyani can take it off." My legal name is Jane, so she said, "Jane can take it off." Actually, in Brazil, they call me Jani, so it doesn't matter, right? So I just froze, right? And my mother said that loud, and the people who were waiting stared at me, and you know, in that moment, I became very self-conscious about that, and it was kind of something that, you know, created a little bit of awareness around what I was doing and being put on the spot and being told that, you know. So I kind of, you know, put that a little bit aside, but continued to study. And then I went to university, you know, and I went to college for psychology for 2 years in Brazil before I met my ex. And yeah, there was another powerful experience I'm trying to bring to that, which was when Xpnsion showed up, you know. That was around the time of my divorce. My life was falling apart, and I was feeling very disoriented. I didn't know, you know, I thought my life was over, pretty much. I would wake up in the morning sometimes and start my day, and I was very busy. I was a mother of 4, and I did a lot of volunteer work at the schools and fundraising, but it's almost like I could see my entire life go by, you know, and a sense of sadness. So I realized I had disconnected from this part of me, you know, by marrying and being busy with the kids, that I put my books aside, and I longed for that connection that I used to have. And so I started a prayer, a beautiful prayer. I felt called to say a prayer that I knew from Brazil. It's called Prece de Caritas. And to be honest, I don't know the precedence of it. It's not a Catholic, but it's a Christian, and it's for Jesus, you know. It's you're addressing the Lord. And I prayed that a lot. I prayed and prayed and prayed every morning. It was long. I had to call my mom and write it down, 3 pages, handwritten, you know. But that was the prayer that I wanted to pray. It couldn't be any other. And I knew like a handful of them, but that was the one. And so every morning before I put my feet on the floor, I had to read it, and I had the pages by my bedside table. And before I fell asleep every night, I read them. And eventually I memorized it all, because it was, you know, weeks of doing that. And that's when, and it's beautiful because I was praying to Jesus. I was praying to Christ. And it was Xpnsion who came. I always say I was praying to the Lord, and the lady showed up. So there's no difference in consciousness. The service is, it doesn't matter what identity, who you pray, what religion you have. The vibration, your frequency vibration is what matters. You know, it's the authenticity, the feeling of what, if you're praying with all your heart, all your soul, and every word, you feel that word deeply, you know? And it's beautiful, and it's touching you, and it's your vibration that will bring that part of you, you know, that elevated self in a different form, in a different density, and we call it spirit, right? And she came, but I didn't know her identity either, because I had, of all the studies I did as esotericist, even a little bit of Rosicrucian, you know, I did a little bit of reading, I visited the temples, but never Buddhism, never Eastern studies for some reason, which I found powerful that didn't happen, because I would probably have thought that what happened to me was biased, because I had no idea what a bodhisattva was. I had no idea who Xpnsion was. And so, but I had been at the time for 2 years fascinated with a type of jewelry, which is Shankari. Shankari, I love you. She's in Bali. Shankari is a dear friend today, but she makes these extraordinary jewelry. This is very simple and it's very old. But her jewelry had wings, and she locks herself in a room for 7 days. Nobody can even talk to her. She brings her jewelry is sold here sometimes. She will blend different crystals to create certain energy. with that, you know. And there's always the angel wings and the freedom wings, you know. She was deeply connected to Kuan Yin. I didn't know because I had not met her then, you know. But I loved her jewelry, and I was always buying a piece. Some of them had Egyptian things, which I also felt very connected from childhood to Egyptian lineage, not knowing why, because nobody talks about that around me. But I read books about it, and I loved it, and felt really connected to that. So I would buy, some of them had the Ankh, some of them had the cross, some had, there's always heart, there was wings, there was, and then one day I go, when my life was falling apart, I was doing the prayers. And I go to this kiosk, the only place at the time in 2003, or 2002, 2003, where this jewelry was sold. And the owner of the store now has a beautiful store in Venice, but I went to Kate and I said, Kate, what is that? After looking at all the fancy ones, there was this medallion hanging on top of a crystal. And I could barely see it because it's transparent, and it was on top of crystal quartz, and it was up high. And she said, "Oh, that's a Kuan Yin medallion." That's when I said, "What is it? What is Kuan Yin?" So that's a bodhisattva. What's a bodhisattva? You know, and it's so funny because she said, "I'll bring it down for you." You know, and as she went behind to get the hook to bring it down, a pole, this woman comes near and says, "How much is it?" And I looked at her and I said, "I'm taking it." I did not touch it. I said, "I am taking it. I don't care how much it is, it's mine." And the woman walked away. So she brings it down, I look at it, and she says, "Well, a bodhisattva is a being who reached Buddhahood, but refuses to leave she's in between realms because she wants to help humanity to rise, you know." And interesting. And I put it on, and I couldn't take it off for like 3 months. I couldn't wear anything else. And so I told my mother. Then I found all the truth started to come out. I found out my husband had an affair. He not only had an affair, he had a child with someone else. And I had like 5-year-old kids at home, 4 or 5. And I had a 13-year-old daughter, our first. So I go to Brazil, and I tell my mom, to tell my mom I'm getting divorced. It was a huge thing in my family. Nobody wanted me to get divorced. But I went there as he was being served, and I told my mother, "I need to see a shaman to protect me. I want protection. I want a talisman. Do you know any shamans, Mom?"
Why did you feel that you needed protection?
Because I felt like my life was upside down.
Mm-hmm.
My marriage was ending, everything. And I thought, I'm not being protected, right? What is going on, you know? So I wanted to go to an authority, a spiritual authority, and Brazil's full of shamans. So my mother said, "Honey, I just don't really know, but we'll ask around." So she asked a friend, and a friend, and a friend found this man. And we went there, and I said, "Tell him I want a talisman, right?" And when we get there, he starts throwing these shells and reading for me and telling me why these things are happening. I said, "You know what, I appreciate that, but I'm here for the talisman. Did my mother say I needed a talisman?" I don't care so much about the story. I demand, I'm a child of God. I demand protection 24/7 for me and for my children. And I was talking, and I had my fist, I didn't hit it, but my hands were clasped. And my mom was sitting on a chair over there, and she says, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "Doing what?" And she said, "I didn't realize with my left hand I was holding the pendant away and talking to him, saying I demand protection 24/7. And I said, "Oh, this was so hot, it was burning my skin. I could not let it. It was too hot." And she gets up and she touches it, says, "Shane, it's cold." And I was like, "Oh well," so I let it go. But these continue to happen, So basically, Kuan Yin was saying, "I am your talisman. I am protecting you 24/7. I'm already here." And then when I came back, I realized, I found out that Shankari's jewelry business was called Talismans of Power. And I didn't know that because I didn't know her. I didn't know She didn't have a website at the time, but that was her business. And then I ended up meeting her, and my life has been this continuous flow from this divine feminine presence that is telling me a lot of stories and led me to the music and led me to more and more and more, you know.
So do you see your life as a discovery?
Oh yeah, it's a fascinating, beautiful discovery journey, and it's almost like embedded with so many codes. And I feel like everybody's lives are like that. We just have to pay attention to the codes. The codes are talking. For example, I found out that his lover, his name was Tara. The time that Tara appeared in my life, Kuan Yin appeared in my life. They're both goddesses of compassion. They may be the same being. The goddesses and the gods have many different names, and ultimately, if you trace cross-culturally in time, the names just change because of culture. The cultures have a different name for the same god or time. You know, because, for example, Inanna in Sumeria was one of the 4 primary deities and the most worshipped of all. She was Ishtar by the time she got to Babylonia. So they're all embedded in each other, like the universe is, you know, it's all connected. But yeah, the codes are always speaking to us.
Fast forward in your life, you know, 2020, what would you say you are in the world to do?
Well, I'm an eternal student. I'm in the world to receive direction, you know, and to connect with beings and connect beings here and from a higher, or I don't even like to say higher, from the wisdom realm, you know, to guide me and to help in whatever way I can. I have an allergy to labels. I don't like to be limited by them. People always want to know if, you know, if I'm a producer or if I'm a singer, because I've done both. If I'm a writer, I've published a book, you know. I don't want to be calling myself an author either, because when you plug yourself into that box, you feel like the rest of your creativity is limited. People don't realize that, you know. And people always want to know what you do, right? So I always say I'm a spiritually inspired visionary. I'm here to just be a student and a servant and help people and, you know, grow and learn more, you know. And
Kaliyani, if people would like to connect with you, would like to speak with you, would like to contact you, what's the best way to do it?
well, you can go to KaliyaniSundari.com. That's a website that's going to be published probably within a month, and that brings together my music, which is Kaliyani.com. So there's Kaliyani.com, and now there will be KaliyaniSundari.com, which blends the spiritual work I'm doing with building community and having spiritual circles with community and also with women. I am very committed to bringing back consciousness of the sacred feminine, and that is in everything, across everything I do. So bringing back, restoring the divine feminine in our consciousness, you know, and using it also to grow our hearts in those areas that we have been missing out, you know, because the feminine has a different energy, you know.
Yeah.
And it's important to create that balance. So, yeah, I look forward to that. Or you can Facebook. You can go to Facebook, and I'm there too. And I write a lot, and I post there. So,
awesome.
Kaliyani Sundari on Facebook too.
Would you mind spelling Kaliyani for the audience,
Kaliyani
please?
is Kaliyani. So there's Kaliyani in India, but there's no Y. There's Kaliyani without the Y, but mine has a Y after the I. So it's Kaliyani, Kaliyani, Sundari, Sundari.
Wonderful. Hey, thank you very much, Kaliyani, for this wonderful journey. I have to confess that every time that I'm with Kaliyani and I ask her to share with the audience and with me, obviously, her story, there's always something new. There's always a detail, and she's extremely, something I admire from her is her ability to have kept a lot of details in her life.
Yeah, Yes.
and which is obviously of great value to share with the audience, which makes us live along with you your story while you are telling it. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Angel.
And here at the Xpnsion Network, we are thrilled to have had Kaliyani today. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. As you know, we are helping to accelerate the consciousness of humanity every single day at the Xpnsion Network. I'm Angel Ribo. I'm very happy that you were here with us today. I hope that you have enjoyed our conversation with Kaliyani as much as we have, and hope to see you soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.